The wind wept like a wounded spirit through the shattered ruins of the Temple of Sola, curling between ancient stones long surrendered to moss and time. Moonlight spilled down in silver sheets, filtering through the broken archways and fractured stone like the breath of forgotten gods. The air was bitter with the chill of high altitude and old magic, tingling with the weight of something that should not be disturbed. Arender Vale stood in the heart of the temple, boots crunching over sacred dust, breath misting in the cold. His fingers trembled not from fear, but anticipation, as they brushed across a weather-worn altar inscribed with runes so ancient they defied translation. He had chased this legend across empires, clawing through tombs and whispers, following fragments in Forbidden's texts that spoke of a gate not made by mortal hands. A gate that did not open to earth, but to the sky. His lantern flickered. Then it died. No wind had touched it. Arender froze, muscles tightening beneath his cloak, heart hammering in his ribs. Then he saw it etched in obsidian, nearly hidden by time an archway sunken into the far wall. Black stone, rimmed with dust, half buried by ivy. As he approached, the hairs on his arms lifted. The runes across the arch began to glow. A soft, golden hum thrummed through the air, like the breath of a sleeping star. Light spilled from the runes, warming the stone, illuminating the ancient symbols in a slow pulse that matched his heartbeat. Celestial Gate. It was real. He stepped back, breath caught in his throat as the space within the arch shimmered, first like heat, then like liquid light. The air split with a soundless crack, and from that fracture, light poured downward from the sky itself. A column of radiance descended, pure and blinding, as though heaven had drawn open a curtain. The temple trembled underfoot. Arender shielded his eyes, but not quickly enough. A figure stepped through the light. She was tall, impossibly so, her frame slender, cloaked in flowing brilliance. 6 vast wings unfurled behind her, each feather woven from threads of starlight. Her silver-white hair floated as if untouched by gravity, shimmering like moonlit silk. Her skin radiated warmth and power. She was unearthly, divine. And then for a single breathless moment, her radiance faltered. Veil that clothed her celestial form flickered and failed. She gasped, as if struck, her golden eyes wide in horror. And Arender saw her not as a being of holy fire, but as a woman, a goddess made flesh. Her skin, soft and luminous, was exposed under the broken veil. A single heartbeat passed. Then another. The heavens screamed. A soundless rupture tore the sky asunder. The runes flared with burning judgment. Light turned sharp, cold, wrathful. A voice, ancient and without mercy, thundered in a language he could not understand, but its meaning was clear. Chains of gold and fire descended from above, wrapping around the seraph's wrists and dragging her toward the open sky. No, wait. Her voice was pure anguish, ringing like bells shattering. Arender fell to his knees as gravity thickened around him, pressing like the hand of a god. The weight of law, of divine fury, pinned him in place. You were not meant to see, she whispered, her voice choked, her eyes desperate. Another voice, a vast one, spoke again from above, and Arender understood only the final command. Die, or be bound. He looked up through the swirling light and saw her wings straining against the chains, her glow dimming in panic and pain. Not wrathful, not vengeful. Afraid. And in that instant, everything he thought he knew about gods, about myths, about truth shattered. She was no longer untouchable. She was real. And if he did not choose her, they would destroy them both. The world was burning gold. Arender's senses blurred as the wind tore around him, lifting dust and broken leaves into a storm of glowing ash. The temple's broken walls groaned with ancient pressure, as if the stone itself remembered the old laws now being invoked. He could barely hear his own heartbeat over the pulsing thrum of the runes, now alive and furious. The obsidian arch blazed like a star on the verge of collapse not above him. The sky had torn open, a jagged wound leaking light and fury. The Seraphim struggled against her bindings, golden chains of divine fire that coiled around her wrists, her ankles, her waist. Her 6 wings beat against the invisible force, pulling her upward, their feathers crackling with fading starlight. Each motion she made was graceful, defiant, and yet desperate. She was losing, and she knew it. "You must speak," she cried. Down to him, her voice laced with the echoes of eternity. "You must choose, mortal." Erender forced himself to his feet. His legs felt like they were made of iron, every step a war against the celestial weight pressing down on him. He couldn't think. He couldn't breathe. The gate, the chains, the fire, it was too much. But her voice reached him through the chaos. That same voice that had pleaded, not with anger, but sorrow. "If you do not claim me," she said, and the words shook as they left her lips, "they will end us both." He didn't understand it. Not fully. He hadn't asked for this, hadn't? Wished to see what no mortal was meant to see. But it no longer mattered. The heavens had passed judgment. And he was no longer just a man. He was now part of something greater, and far more dangerous. The light above began to collapse inward, becoming a spear of judgment. Seraphi screamed as the chains yanked her higher, her wings thrashing. Her radiance had dimmed, less blinding now, less divine. The veil that once cloaked her had returned, but its magic faltered, flickering like a dying candle. Erender looked up into her eyes, golden, wide, terrified. "I accept," he shouted, voice breaking through the roar of the storm. "I don't know what this is, but I won't let them take you." Time-fractured dot the golden fire halted mid-motion. The runes on the gate shifted from fury to awe. A ring of searing light appeared around him, encircling him in a seal of living flame. The very air changed, charged, sacred, and impossibly ancient. The voice from the sky spoke once more, not in threat, but in command. "So shall the bond be made." Seraphi dropped like a stone, released from her bindings. She fell not with violence, but with gracelight trailing her descent. Erender rushed forward as she landed, stumbling into his arms. Her skin was fevered, her breath sharp, but her eyes were steady. Her hands trembled as she took his. "Are you sure?" she whispered, so quiet it could have been a prayer. "No," he said honestly, "but I choose you anyway." The world responded. The seal flared around them, binding their bodies in a spiral of golden flame. The heat wasn't pain, it was revelation. Erender felt something tear open inside him, like a hidden door swinging wide. Seraphi cried out not in agony, but in awe as her own power surged, then spilled into him. Their souls touched, twined, merged. He gasped, staggering as light poured through him. Not just warmth, knowledge. Echoes of her memories, starlit palaces and songs of creation, the beauty of skies never seen by man. In return, she felt the grit of mortal struggle, war, loss, and longing. His longing, their bond sealed, the fire. Dimmed, but it left a mark, glowing faintly across their hands and wrists like a constellation tattooed into flesh. Seraphi stared at him. No longer a seraphim untouched by mortal eyes. Now she was something else. And so was he. "You are no longer mortal," she whispered. "You are Nephilim." Erender looked down at his arms, where veins of light still shimmered under the skin. He didn't feel human anymore, but he wasn't divine either. Before he could speak, the sky cracked one last time. A final voice boomed from the unseen heavens. Bound by soul, unfit for both heaven and earth. "You are exiles now." Then silence. Gate behind them turned to ash dot and the stars above. began to dim. The sky above them was broken, not shattered like glass, but fractured like a mirror, straining to hold its reflection. Cracks of light bled through the atmosphere, revealing the raw brilliance of something beyond the mortal firmament. The Temple of Sola, once echoing with forgotten stillness, now pulsed with lingering heat. The celestial gate was gone reduced to blackened dust, but the bond remained, burned into their skin, tethering two souls who were never meant to touch. Erender stood in stunned silence, his hands still tingling, his breath shallow. He could feel it, the connection, a thread of golden heat looping between his chest and hers, unseen but undeniable. His body ached in strange, unfamiliar ways, as though every bone had been reforged. The wind around him no longer felt like mere weather, it carried whispers, echoes of divine judgment, or perhaps warnings. Seraphim was kneeling on the scorched stone, her wings trembling behind her, their starlit feathers dimmed to a muted shimmer. She clutched her arms to her chest, breath ragged. Her eyes, once so radiant and unreadable now, flickered with something unmistakably human. Terror. "They'll come for us," she said softly, her voice barely more than breath. Erender stepped toward her. "Who?" She looked up. "The Sentinels. The guardians of the high gates. They'll come to undo the bond, to erase what we've become. I thought it was over." He looked down at his glowing forearm, the light slowly fading into his skin, like ink sinking into parchment. Seraphim shook her head. This was only the beginning. Above them, the sky groaned. A thunderless pressure descended from the heavens. It wasn't sound, but weight and invisible force that made the air dense and hard to breathe. The stars blinked, one by one, like eyes shutting in judgment. Then came the sound. Not the sound of wings, but of tearing. Reality splitting. A rift opened high above the temple ruins, wide and jagged, bleeding celestial flame. Through it descended three shapes. Massive, humanoid, but wrong. Wings of platinum and fire, faces veiled in searing light. They wielded weapons forged not from metal, but from the raw will of the heavens, blades of concentrated starlight, staffs crowned in rotating rings of orbiting runes. The Sentinels had arrived. Seraphim stumbled back, her breath catching. "We have to run." "I don't think they'll let us," Erender muttered. Heart pounding. The three descended without a word, their wings unfurling to block out the fractured moon. One stepped forward. Its presence was suffocating, like standing in the shadow of a mountain that had learned to hate. Its voice echoed not in air, but in bone. "The law is broken." Seraphim stepped in front of Erender, her hands raised. "It was not by choice. He did not seek my form." The veil faltered. "The law cares not for fault, only for fracture." The Sentinel's head tilted. He saw. "He is changed. You are defiled. The bond must be severed." Erender felt the heat behind his ribs, something not fear. Anger? No, something older, protective, as if the bond they had forged was alive inside him, and it bristled at the threat. "She is not defiled," he said. "She's more than any of you." The Sentinel's head snapped toward him. In its silence, there was the sound of judgment. Mortal tongue speaks against the divine. The corruption spreads. Without warning, the lead Sentinel raised its weapon. Seraphim screamed. "No!" Her wings flared, a shockwave of pale light pushing the Sentinels back, but only for a breath. They began to advance, slowly, steadily, weapons humming with divine resonance. Behind them, the sky continued to break. Erender reached for Seraphim. Her fingers clutched his instinctively. "Hold on to me," she said, her voice laced with dread. "To what?" "To your soul." "They?" Temple vanished. In a flash of inverted starlight, the world twisted. The wind screamed sideways. Color bent. Space folded, and they were falling. Not down, but through shadow, and cold and silence. Through layers of reality not meant for mortal senses. Down, down, down until the heavens were only a memory. They crashed through the veil between. Realms like comets. And when they landed, it was not on Earth nor in heaven, but in a realm that should not exist. A realm the stars had forgotten. And something was waiting there, watching, smiling. Darkness breathed not the gentle hush of night, nor the calm shadow of dusk, but a sentient, pressing blackness that curled like smoke and whispered like 1,000 mouths just out of reach. It clung to Arender's skin as he awoke, cold and cloying, seeping through his pores as though it sought to unmake him from within. He gasped. Air burned his lungs. His body was sprawled across obsidian stone slick with moisture and etched with symbols that shimmered faintly red like blood or memory. The sky overhead wasn't a sky at all, but a cracked shell of reality. The stars above fractured into jagged lines that oozed faint starlight like open wounds. He blinked, and the constellations flickered, then rearranged themselves in patterns his mind recoiled from trying to understand. Seraphim lay beside him. Her glow was dimmed further still, like the fading embers of a once raging fire. Her silver hair fanned around her like a broken halo. The 6 wings that had once filled the sky were curled tight around her form, trembling. She stirred as he reached for her hand brushing his wrist. "Where are we?" He rasped. Her voice was barely audible, but still carried the note of something ancient. The shadowed middle. A realm between realms. A prison. A graveyard. Arender swallowed, his throat dry. A prison for what? Her golden eyes opened slowly. For everything the heavens feared and the earth forgot. Around them, the darkness stirred. Figures emerged. First one, then many. Tall, lean silhouettes, twisted at the edges. Hollow, eyes glowed faintly, like dying embers in a field of ash. Their limbs were long and uneven, their skin a pale, reflective sheen. They did not walk, so much as drift, their feet never touching the stone. Arender rose slowly, shielding Seraphim behind him, though he had no blade, no shield, only a flickering courage, burning inside the hollow space where certainty used to live. The figures did not speak, but something deeper did. A voice not heard, but felt. It uncoiled through the dark like a serpent through dust, wrapping itself around their thoughts. Cold, velvet, infinite, fallen angel. Mortal bound, what strange fruit the heavens now bear. Arender tensed. Show yourself. A laugh. It wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was knowing. You call to what cannot be named. But I see you? Nephilim. Seraphim stood then, swaying slightly. Her wings flared weakly, casting dim gold onto the corrupted stone. "We are not yours," she said, though her voice shook. "You are no longer theirs," the voice whispered. "Where heaven recoils and earth closes its gates, we welcome." "No." She breathed. "We are not like you. Aren't you?" The darkness twisted. Shapes bloomed from it, once divine beings malformed. Seraphs with broken wings. Mortals consumed by divine fire. Echoes of forgotten bonds. Corrupted unions. Half-creatures. Born of judgment and love. They circled slowly, mournful, reverent. Seraphim's breathing hitched. "These are remnants." Arender's fists clenched. "What happened to them?" "They were like us," she whispered. "But their bonds broke, their minds unmade." Then came the truth like ice in his veins. These weren't monsters. They were lovers. Ones who had chosen each other in defiance of law and been cast here, forgotten by both sky and soil. The voice spoke again. "Join them, or be torn apart. There is no escape from the middle." Seraphim's wings flared suddenly, a defiant. blaze of light erupting from her core. Her body shuddered from the effort, but her fire burned, and the darkness shrieked in retreat. Momentarily blinded, she turned to him, her face pale, her expression wild with urgency. "There's a path out. A gate left behind by the first of us, the first Nephilim." Erender's pulse roared in his ears. "Where?" She pointed beyond the twisted spires, where the shadow broke around a towering ruin, etched with celestial script burned black by betrayal. "There." The voice snarled through the realm. "You will not reach it." Erender didn't hesitate. He grabbed her hand. "Then we'll make them move." They ran, past hollow eyes and cursed memories, past broken altars and haunted moans. The realm screamed as they crossed it, reality shivering at their passage. They reached the ancient altar at the heart of the ruin. It was cracked and worn, but the runes still burned with a trace of golden light, pure, untouched. Erender placed his hand against it. Pain seared through his arm, but he did not pull away. The altar responded to his blood, to his bond, to the echo of Seraphi's soul woven into his own. The gate opened not into heaven nor earth, but something else. A rift of possibility. Of unknowns dot behind them, the twisted remnants howled. Seraphi clutched his hand tighter. "This isn't a door. It's a choice." He looked at her. "Then let's choose." Together they leapt. The light swallowed them, and the middle realm roared in fury at what it could not keep. Light roared around them like a living tide. It wasn't the golden brilliance of the heavens, nor the warmth of a mortal sun. This light was deeper, older, a pale illumination that shimmered with the breath of forgotten stars and memories lost to time. For a heartbeat, Erender felt his body split, bones untethered from skin, soul stretched thin across impossible dimensions. And then, just as suddenly, the world slammed back into form. His knees hit stone. Cold, real, solid. Air rushed into his lungs. Sharp, clean, alive. They had emerged atop a jagged mountain peak, high above a sea of silver mist. The sky above was deep twilight, neither night nor day, painted in hues of indigo and soft violet, scattered with unfamiliar stars that blinked like slow-beating hearts. A crescent moon hovered low on the horizon, unmoving as though caught. Between breaths, Erender staggered to his feet, chest heaving. Seraphi dropped beside him, her knees buckling. He caught her just before she hit the ground. Her body was burning. Not with divine fire, but with fever. Her skin, once radiant and untouchable, was flushed, trembling. Her wings had lost nearly all their glow feathers, now faded white, curling at the edges like burnt parchment. "Seraphi," he whispered, holding her tightly. "What's happening?" She gripped his tunic weakly, her voice like glass cracking. "We weren't supposed to leave the veil." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Then why did you take me with you? Why not let them?" "Because," she said, tears catching at the corners of her lashes, "I could not bear to lose you." The words broke something inside him. She had given up her place in eternity for him. Her grace, her place in the chorus of stars. All of it burned away in a single choice. He drew her close. "You won't lose me." But even as he spoke, a new pressure fell over the mountain. The wind died. The mist below churned. The stars above dimmed. A sound echoed through the sky. Not thunder, not wings, but something heavier, holier, final. Seraphi stiffened in his arms. "They found us." A line of light split the clouds above, and through it descended 7 beings. Clad in white and gold, they fell like spears cast by gods. Wings vast and untarnished, bodies wrapped in shifting armor, etched with living runes. Halos burned above, their veiled heads brighter than suns. They landed without a word, forming a circle around the mountain peak. Their eyes were voids of burning light. Their presence was suffocating. Arender rose slowly, shielding Seraphi behind him. The tallest of them stepped forward. His voice was law itself. You broke the covenant. Seraphi stood with effort, her fingers digging into Arender's. He didn't choose to see. It was an accident. And yet he saw, the archangel intoned, and you did not flee. I tried, she cried. I pleaded. You bound yourselves. You defied the judgment. You left the veil. The archangel's wings spread, casting the entire mountain in shadow. You stood unveiled. He saw what no mortal may see. Now the sentence must be passed. Arender's hand tightened around hers. You would kill us for this? For a mistake? It was no mistake, the archangel said coldly. You were offered a choice, and you chose each other. Seraphi turned to Arender. Her eyes shimmered, not with fear, but something softer. He saw it in her now, the truth. She'd known this moment was coming, known the price, known the law, and yet she had stayed. Arender's heart pounded. The wind began to howl around them again. The stars blinked harder. Seraphi whispered, Will? You? She didn't finish. She didn't need to. The heavens watched. The angels waited Dot, and Arender stepped forward. His voice was low, but unshaking. I choose her. The world held its breath. The angels didn't speak. They only moved. Archangel lifted his palm to the sky, and the heavens opened. A ring of burning fire descended between them, spinning with divine energy. It hovered between Seraphi and Arender, pulsing with judgment, power, and fate. If you seal this bond, the archangel said, you will never return to earth, nor rise to heaven. You will become something in between, unblessed, unwanted, eternal. I know, Arender said. He didn't flinch. Seraphi reached forward, her hand trembling. He took it. The ring ignited. Golden fire wrapped around their arms, spiraling to their hearts. Not pain, not heat. A sensation like their souls being braided together, bound across every lifetime yet to come. Seraphi cried out not from fear, but from release as her fading wings flared one last time, and then dimmed to stillness. The heavens sang, a sound, like the first breath of creation stars in chorus. Ancient and terrible and beautiful. The ring vanished, but the bond remained. And so did the silence. The archangel stared at them. You have made your choice. He turned away. The others followed. No blessing, no curse, just absence. Arender held Seraphi against his chest. She was no longer burning, just breathing, just alive. We're together, he whispered. But the wind answered him with a chill, and the world, above and below, had gone quiet. Too quiet. They had escaped the judgment, but not the consequences. The stars did not return. They hovered above. The mountain in a sky painted still, as if the heavens themselves refused to move forward. Arender stood on the edge of the cliff, his arm wrapped around Seraphi's waist as the last flickers of golden fire faded from their joined hands. Her breath was warm against his chest, but he felt the weight of something unseen pressed down over them, something vast, ancient, and watching. We should feel free, he said softly. Seraphi's voice trembled. We are free. He looked at her, then truly looked. Her wings had dimmed to a pale ivory, feathers no longer radiant, but real, physical. Her skin, once luminous as starlight, now bore faint cracks where divine energy had once pulsed beneath. Her beauty hadn't lessened. It had changed, humanized, fragile. Mortal. Gave up everything, he murmured. She shook her head. Not everything. I chose you. He closed his eyes. Those 3 words, spoken with such quiet certainty, hit harder than any judgment could. But even now, as he pulled her closer, the ground beneath them rumbled with a distant warning. The Mountain was no longer safe, not for what they had become. Below them, the silver mist churned like boiling breath. Something stirred within it. Seraphi's head turned. Her golden eyes, still faintly glowing, narrowed. They're still watching. Not the angels? No. Her fingers curled around his. Something else, older. Before Erender could speak, the ground beneath them shuddered. A crack split the stone near the summit, running in a jagged line like a wound across the earth. From its depths, a whisper rose not in sound, but in thought. A voice so old it did not use words, only pressure. You are not of heaven. You are not of earth. Come. Erender's blood ran cold. He recognized that presence. It wasn't divine, nor was it demonic. It was the same pull he had felt in the shadowed middle, the place between places. It had followed them. No, Seraphi said aloud, her voice cutting through the mountain wind. You will not take us. The crack widened. Mist poured from it black, spined with silver, hissing with memory. The shape that emerged was formless, ever shifting. Not flesh, not spirit. A thought given shape by the void, a forgotten judge, not of the heavens. Not of men, a being from before the laws. You carry the first bond in millennia, the voice whispered, echoing through their minds. And yet you seek to walk freely, without price? We paid the price, Erender said. We were cast out, left behind. Then, why do the laws still tremble in your presence? Why do the stars avert their gaze? Seraphi stepped forward, trembling. Because we broke them. No, the shape grew larger, swelling with unseen breath. Because you proved they could be broken. Lightning crackled through the sky, not from above, but below. Erender reached for Seraphi as the wind whipped around them. The forgotten judge didn't strike, didn't lash out. It simply watched, and it waited. You want us to be afraid, Erender said. To fall apart like the others who came before. No. The voice drifted like smoke. I want you to lead them. Seraphi froze. What? The exiled, the twisted, the broken. The ones who tried to love across the breach and were cast aside. You have done what they could not. You survived. Erender's chest tightened. You want us to gather them? I want you to choose. Hide in the corners of forgotten realms, or become something new, something true. Seraphi's wings twitched, pulling closer to her spine. Her face was unreadable. Then she turned to him, eyes searching. You wanted to return to Earth, she whispered. To live again, quietly, I know. He looked down the mountain, past the mists. The world they knew was out there, maybe, but it would never take them back as they were now. He looked back at her, no longer seraphim, not fully mortal, and bound to him by fire and soul. I wanted to survive, he said, but I never wanted to survive without you. Their fingers intertwined. The darkness before them pulsed. Erender stepped toward the forgotten judge. Then show us the way. The shape bowed just slightly, and the mists parted like a curtain. Below them, a hidden path was revealed. Stone bridges built from collapsed constellations, black trees that bore silver fruit, and shadows watching with eyes that no longer feared heaven. This was no paradise, but it was theirs. Seraphi nodded once. Let's begin. Together, they walked down the broken path into the realm of the castaways. The silent, the forgotten into a future that had never been written. Not heaven. Not Earth but something new. The path ahead glowed with a light that didn't belong. To any sun it shimmered in fractured hues, gold, silver, violet reflections of stars that no longer existed, echoes of a cosmos rewritten by exile. As Erender and Seraphi walked hand in hand on the bridge of fallen constellations, the world shifted around them. Not violently, but reverently. as if even the ruins recognized something sacred had passed. Behind them, the mountain disappeared. Into mist ahead, the realm between realms. What was once void, now breathed with slow awareness. Towering trees with leaves like mirrors arched overhead. Rivers of liquid memory wound through crystalline ravines, whispering stories of those who had come before and then forgotten. The wind carried no scent, no sound, only tension, watchfulness. They were not alone. Figures emerged from the shadows as they passed, some half-formed, others radiant but broken. A woman with wings of ash, a man whose body flickered between flame and flesh, a child with glowing eyes and no shadow. All had the mark of exile burned into their being. All watched Arender and Seraphi with something like awe. None spoke. Seraphi's grip on his hand never loosened, though her face remained guarded. "These are the remnants," she said quietly. "Those who chose what we chose. Those who were cast down or simply left behind." Arender's gaze swept across them. "They're waiting." "For what?" "You." At the sound of that voice, the air shifted. From behind a crumbling obelisk stepped a man unlike the others. He bore no wings, no halo, yet light cooled around his feet. His eyes were ancient, not in age, but in memory. Like he had seen creation and watched it unravel. Draped in robes of twilight, he stood not with the dignity of a king, but the burden of one. Arender spoke first. "Who are you?" The figure inclined his head. "A failure, like you." Seraphi stiffened. "You are Nephilim." "I was the first." His voice rang like a bell through silence. "I took a seraphim's hand long before laws were carved in flame, before judgment wore wings. And when the heavens struck, I fell through every layer of existence until I landed here." He gestured to the strange, broken world around them. This place, this sanctuary of the in-between, was never meant to exist. It was born from our refusal to let go, from love that would not bend. Arender stepped forward, voice steady. "Why are we here?" The first Nephilim looked at them. "Both. Because your bond succeeded where mine failed. You held on to each other, not just through judgment, but through exile, through fear, through unmaking." He turned to Seraphi. "You chose to fall, and you, mortal, chose to rise." Seraphi's voice was soft. "We didn't want to lead anyone." "And yet," the Nephilim said, smiling faintly, "they are following." Behind them, dozens, perhaps hundreds of exiles had gathered. Wings torn, halos shattered, forms half glimpsed through reality's veil. But they were watching, waiting, hoping. "You are the first to complete the bond," he said. "And the only ones to survive it whole. That makes you more than exiles." Arender turned to Seraphi. She looked at him, her expression unreadable, but her eyes were soft. "Human, divine, both. I don't know what we're becoming," she whispered. He touched her cheek gently. "Then let's find out together." The first Nephilim stepped back. And the exiles knelt. Not in worship. In recognition. Seraphi looked down at her hands, still glowing faintly, the mark of their bond etched into her skin. "What happens now?" Arender turned to the gathering. "We don't go back, not to heaven, not to earth, but we build something new, here, in the space between." The stars above trembled. For a moment, one of them flared, a dying sun reigniting. The sky sang with quiet promise. And then, as Seraphi stepped beside him, wings folding gently, eyes lit with defiance and grace, they walked forward, not as fugitives, not as mistakes, but as something new. Nephil, where the laws of gods once ruled, they would write their own. Where the stars dared not shine, they would become the light, together. forever God, and in the quiet beyond heaven and earth. The world held its breath.